the reason that I'm here is because the club is seeking change.
He said, well, whether you come or not, you're going to see a completely different Spurs team under me.
My hope and my desire and what I'm going to try and do is give our supporters hope and belief that we're going to embark on something special.
Welcome into the Tottenham Depot. I am your host, Andrew. You can follow me at Astetka. You can follow us at Tottenham Depot. This is episode 196. Going to be a not so fun one after Spurs lose the North London derby for the third straight time at home. 1-0 in this one. We will get into it. We will get into it with our friend Todd. He is at TC_Show, and he is with us on this Sign Sunday. TC, what's going on, my friend?
Any day that you get the opportunity to chat about Spurs is a good day, but this is not a good fucking day at all. At all. It's not a good fucking day. No part of this is good. I'm not looking forward to this conversation, though I am very excited to chat with y'all.
Likewise. Caroline is also here. She is at CG Stefco. Kaz, how you feeling on this Sunday?
Slightly depressed. That was a massive bummer. I'm not gonna lie, but I guess we have to talk about it. So let's rip off the Band-Aid.
Talk about it. We will. Before we do, I want to remind you that we are delighted and pleased to be partnered up with Digital Spurs. Digital Spurs' artwork put to your favorite apparel, t-shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts, hats, so much more. Danny Garrison creates these pieces in which we love so much. I am today rocking a Tottenham versus everybody, which unfortunately includes Tottenham versus themselves.
And Jared Gillett also.
Yeah, and fucking Jared Gillett. Thank you, Kaz.
We'll come on to that. I'm rocking that today. I know Todd's got the shirt, or the hat rather. He's rocking a mug. We've got all the merch. You should go get some to digitalspurs.com. Find your new favorite merch. Let them know that we here at the Tottenham Depot sent you. Tottenham Hotspur 0, Arsenal 1. A header on a set piece of all things from Gabriel in the 64th minute is the undoing for Spurs in this one. Let's this is one of those matches, guys, that I don't know where we want to start. Let's just start with the 11. Let's start with the 11. I mean, I guess that's as good a place as any. A couple of changes from a couple of weeks ago when we had the Newcastle match, and then of course the international break 3 games in, which I don't want to harp on, but that's the way it goes. Van de Ven does return from his knock, comes in for Dragishin. Bentancur comes back into the midfield for Basuma, who picked up a knock on international duty. Brennan Johnson comes in as well, as does Dominic Solanke back from injury for both Odegaard and Sarr, respectively. Todd, no real surprises. I think this is a very attacking lineup and one that we probably would have felt positive about going into the game, right?
Yeah, I wasn't sure what Ange was going to do in the midfield, given the knock to Basuma, who is the preferred 6 in the Ange system. So whether he was going to give that nod to Sarr or whether he was going to give that nod to Bentancur. I don't think Lolo played particularly bad, but it wasn't necessarily an inspiring performance. And also, we all know how much of a Brennan Johnson guy Ange is, and clearly to ours and his peril today. This was a game, in my opinion, that cried out for Odegaard as opposed to Johnson on the wing, and we didn't see it. It also called, to be fair, it called out for creative wing play from anybody. Sonny was fucking non-existent today, so that was tough as well. But we'll get on to that.
I definitely want to come on to the wing play. Caroline, what are your thoughts? You've gotten your little bio there. It's time for Odegaard to start. I thought Brennan Johnson was, for the 4th match on the bounce, just a one-trick pony and did not show me anything. What did you make of this starting 11?
Well, readers of my newsletter will know that I have been advocating for Brennan to just embrace being a super sub, because I think that has really been his most effective role under Ange. And I do think we needed sort of the creative spark from Odegaard. I don't want to skip ahead to the second half, but he definitely brought something that was woefully lacking for most of the game. I think for me, the biggest issue though right now is just the midfield. I struggle to even know what my preferred midfield is, and I just don't think any of them have really been too effective to start the season, and that's kind of across the board from the 6s to the number 10s and everybody in between. It's just we're not getting enough control or production from the midfield, in my opinion. And I have to include Madison in that as well, I think. But yeah, Basuma having a knock really was not a huge deal to me because I didn't have confidence in him or Bentancur. So it is what it is.
Kaz is a vaunted number 6 hater on this current team. We understand.
Well, I just don't think we have a good option. We really don't. And I think Gray has potential, but he's also a child. So, that's not really, you don't want him coming into a huge game like this. I don't think so.
Yeah. And it's tough. And we certainly understand the perspective, Kaz. Obviously it's well documented on this pod. But these are very serviceable number 6s in the footballing landscape.
Serviceable is a good word.
Whether we like,
but it doesn't inspire me.
No, but here's what I'll say about the 6 problem, though. Like the 6 problem is
out of our 6 play, Andrew.
It's exacerbated. Yeah, it's serviceable, but it's exacerbated when you have, a number 10 and a number 8 who are not creating anything, like truly doing anything creatively to, like, the ball, the possession is there. Spurs had 64% of the ball. Once again, they're going to dominate possession, which you would expect them to do in a home match. I don't care if it's against Arsenal. I don't care if it's against Real Madrid, Man City. It doesn't matter. The way that this team plays, they're going to dominate the ball, but they're not fucking doing anything with it. And that's the problem.
Well, hold on. So I agree. They're not, quote, fucking doing anything with it. And that is the problem. However, I think that it's hard to just circle the midfield and say, this is the problem. And the reason why I say that, and I think this will be a perfect segue to our wing discussion, Andrew. The reason why I say that is because what they're instructed to do in the Ange system is find the wide outlet, and they find the wide outlet and say what we want to say. We don't have, with the exception of Odebear, a winger that can beat a man off the dribble right now. We just in the top 6, we just don't have it. We just don't have it.
I cannot disagree with you.
So if you're not getting drive to the touchline and cross production, you're just literally, we sat there for half of that match and just spammed balls into the box that had no chance of getting through to anybody. And the balls that were being put in, the people that we had in the middle, I mean, Dom, did the best job that he could, but he was the only one that ever looked remotely dangerous. And still, we started bringing fucking Romero up, trying to get his head on some
out of desperation at the end.
Out of desperation, exactly. So, like I'm sitting here and I'm saying to you that as much as we're complaining about the midfield and their lack of production, which and you and I before the pod harped on, I personally brought up the fact that I don't think that James Maddison has been good enough since his return from injury to start for this team. We just don't really have another option. You guys in the chat took some swings at my guy Decky today, but I felt that Decky was the only one that had any sort of legitimate inspiring play going forward, though in the end, all of the balls that he was able to complete ended up in just the play being held up, and the next thing you knew, fucking 6 Arsenal shirts are in the box, and we're starting all over again to no avail. I didn't feel any sort of sense of urgency in the attack. Then I didn't feel like when we had our chances that we took them remotely as well as we should have. And ultimately, you can't put that on the midfielders when they do a good enough job to put the ball on Big Dom's foot, or when Son or Madison, I don't remember who it was able to play Udogie into the box. It was Madison who played Udogie into the box, and he just stood there and tried to look for a pass instead of taking a first-time shot. Like, these are the types of things that, like, that's on the individual players. And I don't really know if that's like a coaching miss where they're like scared to take the shot, like look for the pass first, or what they're doing right there. But the lack of decisive finishing, I don't think you can put on system or midfield.
I want to drill into like sort of what you're talking about, both the wingers, the attacking midfielders. I don't really have a whole lot to say about Dom Solanke. I thought he looked as good, if not slightly better, than Richarlison has ever looked in this system, because I don't think the striker calls out for, creativity. It calls out for somebody being there and trying to finish. Go ahead, Caroline.
Yeah, I just want to say that I'm sympathetic to Dom because his start with this team was interrupted by injury almost immediately. And I agree with Todd. I think he looked the most threatening out of any of the forwards. And it's not really his fault per se that he hasn't developed sort of that chemistry with the wingers yet. I think that's going to come, but at least he was, getting on the end of some like half chances, which is really all you can ask of him at this point when he's barely trained with the team. I feel like
this was his second match for this team. Like, you can't. I'm not here to jump to conclusions there. I want to say something that I don't want to come off as I'm just doing shtick and just trying to be funny in light of current events. This game to me was the epitome of this team doesn't have a plan. It has the concept of a plan. And like, that is genuinely how I feel about the way that this team attacks right now. Like it wants. Thank you for the laughter, Todd. Like I'm being.
Oh, that's exceptional. No, because
I'm not trying to be funny when I say that. I genuinely believe it. Like, all right, maybe I'm trying to be a little bit funny, but like, this team, if it cannot get to the byline and hit a cutback with Brennan or Sonny, which it can't do when you have, let's just call it, good defenders on the other end and players who are not. So I don't think Sonny is a touchline winger anymore. Like, I just don't.
He's never been a touchline winger.
I think he needs to play more. I think he needs to play more centrally, almost in the role that Kulusevski was playing, but on the opposite side, which I guess would be the role that Madison is playing.
There we go.
And yes, thank you. And Brennan can do that kind of shit against a different team, a lesser team. But Arsenal is not a lesser team.
Well, and I think you're picking up on something there, Andrew, which is that there's just a lot of canceling out happening across the forward line, like sometimes to the literal point that we saw players running into each other, like tripping each other up, taking the ball from them on accident. So it's just, I agree, like that there is a plan, obviously, but the execution is not working at the moment. But I also think some of that was just like a weird lack of urgency, especially in the second half. I thought the first half was pretty solid, honestly. But the second half was a painful watch because nobody was on it.
I want to talk about the first half because the first half to me was defined by, and I'm going to be really hesitant in how I say this because Todd, I could see you like licking your chops. The first half was defined by how this match was officiated. And I actually, in the grand scheme of things, did not have a massive issue with the way the game was officiated because I felt like if it wasn't officiated in that way, with it being a North London derby and it being very highly charged, I felt like if it wasn't officiated in that way, I felt like it could have gotten out of control. There were 7 yellow cards dished out, 5 of them to Spurs in the first half alone, which tied a Premier League record. 1 more yellow card given out to Arsenal in the second half. But I felt like the match was very stop-start in the first half. And I said to you guys in our group chat from about the 40th minute, I said, I really want to see us just get to half here unscathed and see if Ange can make adjustments because I felt like Ange would have the ability to make some adjustments. And
he didn't make any adjustments.
Correct. Yeah. So that's the unfortunate part of this. I felt like he could get to the break and make the adjustments. Obviously, that didn't happen. But Todd, go ahead. I'm gonna see the floor.
No, it's. You came out of the box swinging, and I was really excited to see where it goes. But ultimately, you double backed on yourself, and so
I'm not doubling back. I think the match was officiated in a way that I was fine with. I don't agree with every call, but you're never going to agree with every call.
But the problem with that is it paints with too broad of a brush, right? And so I don't have a problem with every call. Right. I don't have a problem with every call. What I have a problem with is every close call going against Spurs in terms of one, Mikel Arteta picking the fucking ball up
I was screaming.
I was so literally angry. Screaming. We legitimately had a chance at a breakaway because we had 2 guys and he picked the ball up. And in so doing, fucking Jared gave him the free kick, even though anyway, it doesn't fucking matter. The second piece is how in the possible world Vicario got a yellow card for that entire exchange with Timber and Porro. I'll never know. Okay, so if you want to talk about, the referee needed to officiate the game that way because otherwise it would have get out of hand. Well, at least know what the fuck you're doing. All right, and then the last piece is you've already like calmed the game down. You've given out yellows on both sides. You're trying to be favorable, and then with virtually the last kicks of the first half, you decide to flash 2 yellows on challenges that were borderline at best. And that's somehow how you're going to manage control of the game. Essentially, all you did was cripple Spurs in the second half. So now we got to play patty cake on defense with absolutely everybody because half the fucking team, more than half the team, that are on the outfield players, or actually, including Vicario.
I agree with you.
Now we're on pins and needles, man. I just and this the thing is you don't have to disagree with the way that the game is officiated as a whole. But when key moments come down to like the Dom Solanke thing where they called goalie interference even before motherfuckers hit the ground. Dom didn't even get a legitimate chance at that. If that's Vicario in Holland, that's a goal. Mark my words.
I agree with everything you're saying. I also think that it's certainly not the reason that they lost this match. Like
saying I don't disagree, and that's not the reason why they lost is not the same thing as validating the point.
I agree. Like so the thing I had a real problem with is if we want to talk about consistency, the yellow card for the challenge on Poro by Timber is a red card if it's Romero going over a ball like that.
We've seen it be a red card in other games
against Chelsea. And had it virtually be the first domino that fell to ruin all of the momentum that we had built last season. Thank you, Michael Oliver. Go fuck yourself. But that I agree. It is those decisions, Andrew. It's what it is the gray area decisions not going in Spurs' favor. And then when a gray area thing happens where anybody can take the opposite approach and hit it to the extreme against Spurs, and to the very point, we talked about Bentancur and what may be thought of him and the FA's decision to come out to say that he may be suspended as they look into this situation. Did Enzo Fernandez get any of that shit?
No,
you're not. What the fuck are we talking about?
It's inconsistency, and we I feel like we come on here every other week, if not every week, and bitch about decisions, but it's frustration. And this club has had such a mindset over the years that they aren't able to overcome those things that it's frustrating for me to have to just continually talk about them. Caroline, did you have anything else on the officiating as a whole? Because I really want to harp on how poorly this team is playing right now. This is the team's worst start in the last 9 years, which I don't think people will grasp. They have 1 win from their first 4, a draw, and 2 defeats, and that's the worst start for them in nearly a decade. I do want to harp on that part of it, but do you have anything else on the officiating before we move on?
Not on the officiating, because, ultimately, I do think losing this game was more down to the lack of potency in the attack than anything, because I think despite having so many yellow cards, we did defend really well from open play. So that wasn't an issue. It's just, the set pieces continue to hurt us. And if we're not scoring enough, which is supposed to be the plan, to outscore our opponent, knowing that we're going to slip up and make those stupid set piece mistakes, like it's just got to be better in the front line ultimately.
And also, I'm going to say this one thing about the goal that we did give up is shout out to Arsenal for designing a perfect play to fuck up Vicario, because it was perfect.
It was perfect. Let's talk about the set pieces, because they continue to be an issue. I do want to come a little bit more into the attacking, but we're recording this like literally 35 minutes or so after the full-time whistle, so I have not had time to listen to post-match, or normally I'm able to grab a clip or two from Ange's post-match press conference and play it, but instead I'm going to read you something from the internet, which is not normally what I would like to do, but this is a quote that Sun Heung-min gave to Sky Sports. Quote, "We dominated the game. The football was there, and we just conceded from a set piece again. We did it last season, and it's really frustrating. I am sure the fans are also very disappointed. We have to improve 100%. It's a tough moment, and we have to stick together. We are getting into the final third, but the players have to take the responsibility to score. It is the hardest part of football, making the right decision and being clinical. We will bounce back strong. There is a long way to go." End quote. I want to take issue with some of that because I don't think Spurs did dominate this game right from the jump. He says we dominated the game. No, they dominated the possession. They did not dominate this game. And the conceding from a set piece, I'll go to a quote. I'm seeing quotes from Ange here. It's been the tale of our season so far. We've been pretty good in all games in terms of dominating possession and creating chances, but if you don't take them, you're always going to get punished. And we switched off for a moment and got punished. When that keeps happening on a consistent basis, isn't that a crisis of coaching, Caroline? Like,
no, dude, no. Go ahead, Kaz. I want to hear what you have to say, but you can't say it's a crisis of coaching when it's the same. It's 5 fucking managers deep, and like we still can't defend a fucking set piece. Like, I don't know, right? Like, I miss Giovanni Bio, however you say his name. That's what I miss.
Well, I mean, I can't speak to what the coaching is happening here, but I do think there just have been lapses in concentration. And in the last game, I was willing to chalk it up to kind of sort of the equilibrium being pulled off in the back line because we had Radu and Romero switching and things were not, where they were expecting them to be. That's fine. Like, it happens. But in this game, we did have our preferred back line. And honestly, that kind of becomes moot when it's a set piece anyway, because everybody is expected to be pitching in. And you had the situation where Romero was just kind of in no man's land, not marking anyone. So I think I put the most blame on him for this goal. But I do think the situation with Vicario was a factor for sure. And, that's something that Arsenal are very good at being sort of streetwise, shall we say, and finding a way to kind of skirt the definition of the rule of a foul and, on the attack. And that's something that we really just can't, compensate for, short of Vicario just going rogue, taking it into his own hands, which I think is kind of what the commentators were suggesting. And I can see it from that perspective. Maybe he does just need to come out and claim it. And
if he doesn't have a fucking yellow card, Kaz.
Well, that is true. That is a factor. Yeah.
But he's not going to get booked for attacking a ball on a corner.
I disagree. I disagree. I think that whether he or not he gets booked, I think that the fear of, I have to be careful because I have a yellow is definitely something that plays in the back of the players' minds. That they had a conversation about it. We didn't have a single player sent off today. So shout out to the team for that. Shout out to the team for that. But at the same point in time, we played scared the entire second half. I want to bring up something that you mentioned, Kaz, and you said it in a way that made me chuckle a little bit, calling their fuckery streetwise. But what I will say,
I was trying to be nice, even though I shouldn't have been.
I know it's an important distinction to make, though, because I would say that Arteta is a filthy fucking rat, and he does a really, really good job at the dark arts, and he always has, and all of his teams are very good at that, or they get shipped to Germany. Shaka. But what I think ultimately he's found a group of players that does the shitty, time wasting, cheeky foul, blocking off the keeper, undoing the keeper's gloves. Ben White, like the fact that I can predict the Saka limp within 2 minutes of when it happened. Like, these are all things that play into the way that you win games.
And what was the most frustrating thing about what was happening in the box on this set piece is the way that they sort of put our own players against Vicario, because they were literally shoving our guys into him.
Uh-huh.
And that's how they skirt the rule. That's how
it's
they
legal.
Get away with this borderline cheating, in my opinion. But there's no technical rule against it. So it's a situation we can't really deal with, I don't think.
There's going to be a lot There already has been a lot. There's going to be a lot more pressure on Ange when it comes to set pieces and fixing this as the season builds, especially if they continue to be an issue as they have been. We honestly, through the first 3 matches, we thought, oh, the set piece defense looks a little bit better. But then you get one scored like this in this manner, and it's the decisive goal in a North London derby. And look, I've already seen a lot of foolishness on the World Wide Web, which is where foolishness tends to live in terms of Ange out and those kinds of things. I actually saw someone, and I don't remember who it was, but someone said, I'm starting to become Ange out. I'm all for a project. And those 2 sentences right there, to me, contradict one.
They do.
Precisely.
Because if you're
yeah,
for
we
a
have
project,
to be patient. We just do.
But okay, but it's important, and I don't mean to interrupt on the point, but it is important to note that Tottenham fans have been sold get behind the project for the last 20 years.
Yes,
they have.
But
And that's a tough pill to swallow.
There really was no real project under Conte or Mourinho. That was
that was trying to finish the project that Pochettino started. And this is the whole thing.
And a totally different style of play. I
didn't say that it was a good idea. I'm just saying that it was the
it's almost like the difference between a plan and concepts of a plan, right?
Right. No. But Daniel Levy legitimately had a plan. He was like, I have all of these amazing players, and I just need a manager that can win to get it over the line. So I'm going to sack Pochettino and bring in the greatest winner of all time.
What nationality is Daniel Levy? I wasn't sure what that accent was.
All right. Well, sometimes you got to take a swing at it. No. So anyhow, you find yourself in a position where Daniel Levy goes, "Give me the winner," and he brought in 2 of them, and they couldn't win because the foundation for their style of winning didn't exist within the club. When he had the project, for whatever decisions that he made, and from a business standpoint, he made the right one. From a team standpoint, he made the wrong one. From a fan standpoint, we're going to say he made the wrong one for this particular purpose. When you don't spend any money for 3 windows, when you have the greatest striker of a generation and all of the pieces that we had under Pochettino, and you nickel and dime and buy the Nkudus and Njais of the world instead of getting him a legitimate winger when he asks for one, like these are the types of things that are going to put you in a position to where you're going to have to grasp at straws. And so he grasped at straws and he failed because of ego, if we're being honest about it. He failed because of ego.
The point on Ange, I mean, we held them for the most part, and you switch off for one and you pay the price. They took their key moment and we didn't. He said it wasn't just Romero, a couple of others switched off as well. We paid a price for it. These are the kinds of quotes that are just going to continually piss people off. And they're frankly, they're starting to piss me off a little bit because it is that part of the game itself is going to be a coaching issue if it's not fixed. And that's, I don't know how much angry I can get about that.
You can take 150 ground balls in practice, dude. But if you switch off and the ball hits you and goes in between your legs, you can't put that on the coach. Right. So it's like you can drill this all day long. We've got new coaches, and it's been said we've got new coaches on set pieces. And, with Ange having the ability to look at what happened and be like, this person switched off, a couple other people switched off. Like that goes to show like they weren't doing what the fuck they were supposed to be doing, Andrew.
I hear what you're saying, but it's I hear what you're saying, but really it's what I'm talking about is a narrative. It's a narrative.
And let's just say too that Arsenal are very good at getting this kind of dodgy win. Like they do it time and time again. It could happen to any team. However, I think for me, the frustration I'm starting to get with Ange is not so much kind of brushing the defensive issues under the rug and, pretending like it's not an issue. It is an issue. My problem is that I don't think he's being proactive enough when it comes to adjusting things in the attack either.
I think that's the biggest
issue. His whole
100%. I thought the defense was pretty good
to be so potent in the attack that the defense isn't an issue. Well, we're not there yet. And I think there are things he could have done today to, give us a bit of a spark, like just to get back to kind of what Sonny was saying in his quote about how, the players needed to show the focus and the energy. I'm paraphrasing here. I think Odegaard did exactly that when he came on, and we needed someone who was going to move the ball quicker, just take some chances. Like
Not only move
it
the ball
became very
quicker,
stale.
but have more than one move.
That too,
Like,
yes. We need more. I think it's just getting to the point where our attack feels very static because we really only have the send it out to the wingers and cross it in situation going
it's one
on.
play. It's a
Right.
one-trick
And
move.
I think someone like Odebear, someone like Bergval also, they're going to present different options for us, different avenues to attack. And I just didn't understand why he kept it the way it was for so long. Like Ange's late subs continually frustrate me. I think that's the thing I get the most frustrated with about him.
I want to push back slightly on you calling this a dodgy win for Arsenal, because I think that Arsenal were the better team. I thought they were the better team in this match. And I think that if Spurs win a match,
I have to strongly disagree there. I don't think they were better.
I think they were better. I think they made more of the ball. They did more with the ball, even though they had much less of it. I think if Spurs win a match like this, where they honestly, this was almost like a Mourinho-esque type of win, where you have way less on the ball, but you score the one goal, you take your chances. We weren't calling those dodgy victories back in those times.
I'm pretty sure I did, because I am fundamentally opposed to that stuff.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you, Kaz.
I mean, I'm fundamentally opposed to it as well. But until Ange can, like you were saying before, Caroline, until Ange can get this team to score 3 goals a game and allow 2 and have that be the way you win it, suffering these 1-0 defeats like this, it's not really dodgy. Arsenal played better. They did more with the ball when they had it, and they had it for a lot less than we did.
To me, it's still just a consistency issue, because we've seen that the team is capable of having those 3-goal games. You know, it's just that they're not. I don't know if it's a mentality thing or what, because, you know, we've been talking about, is it a coaching issue? Is it the players? It's just so hard to say, because it's frustrating to see the same players come out and play a completely different game. You know, the next time out, it's like, what is going on between the ears? I don't understand.
I think this team is capable of having a 3-goal game against lesser competition. This team has gone winless in its last 9 games against fellow top 6 opposition. That is abysmal. They cannot score multiple goals against teams like Arsenal. Like,
but I think a lot of that, again, is down to Ange's game management for me.
And for me, I think it's down to personnel availability, because when over the last 9, when you actually take a look at them, like, and I'm sure you're counting club ties as well, or cup
there
ties
were
as well.
extenuating circumstances, and
there certainly were. There certainly were. But my bigger issue is this season. My bigger issue is this season, because supposedly we have everybody back, right? There are no excuses. Madison didn't go away for the Euro, so it's not like legs are extra taxed. We had everybody back, and we've come out of the gate and not look great.
Well, and not only that, but you're facing an Arsenal team that's missing 2 of its better midfielders. Like,
yeah, but
this was the opportunity.
Well, and again,
that's what makes this so frustrating.
If we had been more proactive with the subs, I think we could have found the goal before them, because they did not have the same level of quality on their bench. They had Sterling as an option to bring on, but you look at, you know, pretty much the rest of their bench, and it's like, who are these people? Who are these children? I don't know them.
Yeah, no, and I think that Arteta managed. I think that's why, again, you go back to the way that they managed the game. Like, this very much was like they pitched a shutout here. They really, really did. In my opinion, they knew that we were going to have more energy and more quality on the ball, and they were going to have to soak up a ton of pressure. They absolutely did. They're one of the better defensive teams in the league. You got to give them credit where it is. And even despite the players that they were missing, Arteta basically said, you guys aren't going to beat us offensively, but when we've got, 8 men behind the ball, 9 men behind the ball, you're not going to beat us. And he was right. And that's the thing that I take issue with, and it goes back to the conversation that we had before. So there were a few chances in the first half that we should have taken and been clinical, right? And I think if we take those chances, we're having an entirely different conversation. I think Ange knows that as well. And that was the story of the last game, and that was the story of the game before that. And that seems to be the prevailing discussion, or narrative, as Andrew wants to call it today, around this season of Tottenham Hotspur football, is our inability to take the chances when they're presented to us. I don't know what to say about it.
Why I keep talking about narrative is simply because it's what people are going to be talking about. You're going to read stories, you're going to read a lot of stuff about Ange, and I want to be the practical one. Like here at the Tottenham Depot, we're never really, I mean, look, we get a little hot takey here at times, but most of it is tongue in cheek. We are pretty reasonable on this podcast. We like to come in with cool heads. We're doing this podcast, like I said, we started recording about 30 minutes after the full-time whistle. So that's where we're at. We're just trying to be very transparent with the listener or the viewer if you're watching us on YouTube. I want to continue to tell people that yes, this is a project. Yes, we have to take a long-term view, but also this is not good. It's not panic time, but let me put this in perspective for you guys for a second. I know this is 4 matches, and 4 matches does not make a season. It doesn't make close to a quarter of a season. Currently, Wolves are taking on Newcastle and have a 1-0 lead as they approach halftime. If that result were to hold, Spurs would be a full 2 points off the relegation zone. Like, that's how bad this start has been through 4 matches. They are 2 points off the drop. They're not good right now. And I think there is room for improvement, because how could there not be? But at the same time, I don't see how this gets better quickly. And everyone wants to harken back to the first 10 games of last season and finding that form. That is so damn long ago. That is eons ago. A year in football is almost
eternity.
It's an eternity. They need to figure out how they are going to, if they're going to play in this way, unless they're going to completely revamp and reshape how the style of play that they want to try and go out and accomplish. They need to find out how to score more goals, and they need to do it quickly, because they have 6 goals in 4 matches, and it has been good enough for them to get 4 points through those first 4 matches. That is not going to get the job done. I'm not saying that it's actually relegation level. I'm not trying to scare anyone into thinking that. I'm not trying to be hyperbolic. But this is right now, they sit 13th in the table. They're going to go play Brentford next weekend in the Premier League. And yes,
Brentford is no joke.
Brentford is no joke. Brentford already have 2 wins and 2 defeats, but they are in 9. They're a full 4 points on the table. And look, I know you don't look at the table this early in the season. I'm not trying to be that guy, but that match is no joke. Like you just said, Todd, that you need a result from that game. You need a result from that game. It's scary. It's scary right now.
Yeah, the thing is that, and I agree with you, but and I think the scariest thing about it is the fact that we've been sold this dream of Ange ball, and we've seen glimpses of it. But I don't know that we've seen anything that has legitimately resembled Ange ball this season. Like the fluidity, the passing, the quick movement, maybe Mickey on the break, right, is the most Ange ball thing that we've seen this season.
I think you saw it against Everton, but we all know Everton are
in a rough spot.
Blake.
Really, really bad.
Yeah.
Everton have conceded 13 goals in their 4 matches. Like, they are.
Oh, mate.
They are rough. Everton.
Yeah. So, and that's kind of what we're talking about in the current moment in time. Now, fortunately, there are more. There are different levels of competition, and I think that we're going to do better against the lesser competition this year, as you mentioned. And I think if we are able to take those points, I think that we'll do exceptionally well. But I think the biggest thing that we're missing right now is the continuity, right? We don't have the continuity going forward where those guys look like they know what they're going to do with one another. They look like they know where the other one is going to go, and they can put the ball into space. You saw glimpses of it with Sonny and Madison, but I think that was just individual kind of genius with the ball. It didn't look like they were communicating particularly well. That has been my biggest issue with the Ange system, Andrew, is that we've got all the darn touches in the world in the box and we can't finish. So we brought in a legitimate striker, an in-the-box striker in Dom Solanke. And we said, here you go, Dom, finish in the box. And he's missed a couple of games, and he's played a couple of games, and he's been really active in the press, which is the other reason why we bought him, and he's done great. But he hasn't scored any goals, really.
By the way, he's been really active in the press. He's looked really good pressing.
And honestly, on paper, Andrew, that was probably his most attractive quality to Ange coming in, right? Because that's Ange. Ange loves that shit. So, and he does extremely well at it. I'm glad that he's there, right? It's another thing that Brennan Johnson does extremely well, is press off the ball and create chances from it. Unfortunately, the other thing that we paid Dominic Solanke to do was to score fucking goals. And so far, there have been no fucking goals to speak of. So, with that in mind, the situation doesn't change quickly unless Dom starts converting his fucking chances, or Richie, or whomever is standing in the god blessed middle of the box. Finish your fucking chances.
I think the goals are going to have to come from everywhere, though. Like, it's not. I mean, we got super.
The reason why we bought Dom was to finish the chances on the balls that come into the 6-yard box, and Sonny doesn't have the physicality to do that.
I agree with you.
And
I also want to continually remind people that we got spoiled for a whole hell of a lot of time watching a guy who's really, really good at doing what we're asking Dom Solanke to do. Like, we just did.
But I do agree that when we see Ange ball at its best, we're getting goals from all over the pitch. Like, that has been the reality.
Yeah.
I think if we look back at that strong start we had last season, I think James Maddison was really integral to that.
Agreed.
And we've just not seen the same level out of him this season. So I think Ange is going to have to start making some kind of harsh choices about who he can rely on right now. And some of that is just like fitness, the reality of that. But I just think he's got to be a little more willing to make tweaks because, I'm someone who tries to be really positive, and I have been up until this game. And I'm not going to say I've gone, the total opposite and I'm feeling negative now. Like, I do think we still need to trust in the process, as they say. But he has to be able to make more changes and be decisive. So that's
I agree with you. We are going to see some changes this week because it's the first 2-match week of the season. Spurs will travel to face Coventry City in the third round of the League Cup, the Carabao Cup, if you will, on Wednesday. Before they return home next Saturday to host Brentford, as I alluded to a little bit earlier. Coventry not having a good go of it in the championship to start the season. 1 win, 2 draws, 2 defeats. They had a 1-1 draw against Watford on Saturday. They sit 14th in the championship right now. Brentford, as I mentioned, doing a little bit better. They did suffer a defeat, although it was to Manchester City on Saturday. They sit 9th, 2 wins, 2 losses from their first 4. So that's what's ahead.
They scored first in that match too.
Yeah, that's what sits ahead for Spurs. I would expect to see a lot of rotation for the midweek match. I would expect to see the likes of Jed Spence, who I know has been talked about a lot because of the Europa League snub. I would expect to certainly see Radu Dragic start. I would expect to hopefully see the likes of Lucas Bergvall, Archie Gray get their starts as well. Perhaps we get like a Timo Werner start, Wilson Odegaard start. Those kinds of things. It sounds like Richarlison is still a ways away, so maybe you'll have to start Solanke again. Maybe they'll start, I don't know. Maybe you start Kulusevski through the middle. I don't know. What, Caroline, you're talking about like changes you want to see. What about for this match in particular, and trying to save something for the weekend as well?
Well, I think I would still start Solanke because I think this could be a good confidence booster for him. That is, much needed. Otherwise, I kind of agree with all of those shouts that you just had. I think if it's a matter of Ange not having full trust in those players yet, give them a run out, give them a chance to prove themselves, and show that they can do it against, these senior teams. So
Ben Davis, another one I didn't mention. I would like to see him get some time on the field.
Yeah, because we just haven't seen him really this season, and I would like to know that he's still, capable. Not that I'm doubting my beloved Daddy.
Daddy Davis is capable.
He's 100% capable of giving you a 6.4.
He's still doing it for Wales. We know that, yeah.
He's 100% capable of giving you a 6.4 on any day of the week. Just know.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what it comes
Hopefully
about.
more than that against Coventry City.
I said what I said. I think that Caroline made a great point about Dom starting this game. Because I think that confidence booster, yes, in reps. Man needs reps.
He needs
get some miles on the legs.
With the team. Yeah. Exactly.
And I think, to your very, very point, Kaz, this match will be the one where Lucas Bergvall takes control of that attacking midfielder position and relegates James Maddison to cup fodder. And I hate to say that, but I think this is where we're headed. Because that guy's special and matters. He looks old.
Well,
I want to
even
see him be special against Coventry City before I say he's special. I want
I
to see
think
that.
Madison might just need the pressure on him.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? Like this could be an opportunity for him to turn the season around and be like, "Hey, I'm still here. I'm still co-captain. I'm still important to this team." But I don't think until we see Berval get more minutes that that's really going to be, a reality for him.
We will see. Expect some midweek content from us looking ahead from our boys, Dak and Scott. I think we're going to try and get them on the YouTube page. If you've been missing that, by the way, go subscribe, youtube.com/Tottenham Depot. Those are not dropping in the podcast feed. Those are YouTube exclusives. So go check out our YouTube page. Quickly before, and I don't really want to harp on this too long, but before we talk about Spurs women, Rodrigo Bentancur did get a charge from the FA this week for his racist comment about Sun from this summer. He has until Thursday to provide a response. I have seen a myriad of reports on what this could mean for him in the long run. I've seen it could be a punishment of a suspension from up to a couple of games to up to 12 games. I've seen, like I said, a lot there. I don't know that we have much else to say about this other than we'll see how it plays out. I think that any punishment that is coming his way is fully deserved. I think the one thing I'll say is I saw, again, avoid the World Wide Web whenever you can, because I saw a lot of stupid people wanting to have a dig at Sun because of this, which is just absolutely insane. Maybe I'm just on the wrong corners of the internet. This is something that Bentancur needs to own, and needs to own a little bit better than he even did before. And hopefully he's able to do that. But I don't know if you guys have anything to add on this news that came out this week.
Yeah, I just think, these are the consequences of his action. He's still fortunate he didn't get any actual punishment from the club itself. I think that was a big miss. I will say I think 12 games feels excessive for any sort of offense, to be honest, because that's almost a third of the season. Like that feels insane to me. But the one thing that's really bothering me about this situation is that the FA is kind of excusing themselves from taking care of the Enzo Fernandez situation.
Yes.
By punting it off to CONMEBOL, basically. And I just don't think that's right. Like, if they're going to say this incident with Bentancur that happened while he was away on international break is under their purview, why is the Enzo one not? I think it's a total double standard.
Are we saying that, I don't know, like points deductions for Everton, but City gets none despite 115
we
charges?
could be saying that. We could be saying that.
I mean, if you're saying that there is some sort of, well, goodness, narrative affirming double standard, I'd 100% have to agree with you. I mean, this is the fucking world that we're living in right now, and it's super frustrating because, I mean, Rodrigo Bentancur made his mistake. He admitted it was a mistake. He talked to his teammate about it. It's not something the club has addressed. The FA coming out and making a big fucking deal out of it just feels like negative fodder to toss at Spurs. I don't know what else we're fucking doing here, especially when, to your very point, there are and have been a myriad of offenses by players across the league far worse than what Rodrigo Bentancur said in one sentence on a show in his native country, and we're over here having a conversation about it as though it's some sort of wild civil disobedience on his part. It's a lot for no reason outside of the internal handlings that have been had already, and it's frustrating to deal with.
Bentancur did receive a 4-match suspension from CONMEBOL for the international matches, but this would be obviously a little bit different coming from the FA. So, like I said, we'll see what comes.
Oh, that's not what it was for.
But that was for the bottle throwing.
That was for the bottle throwing. It had nothing to do with this incident. The FA is
You're right.
making this a thing for no fucking reason.
You're totally right. That you know what? That slipped my mind. There's been so many damn transgressions that I'm mixing them up. You're exactly right. But look,
I do think he deserves to be punished, but so
I do too.
That's
I do too. But you know what? I also think it should come from the should have come from the club.
Exactly.
They should have done the same thing frankly, that they did with Basuma and just sat him for a match and said, let's
Again, double standards. Yep.
It's not great. It's not great at all. The only other kind of news before we get to Spurs Women, which I do kind of want to punt because I really want Scott to be on the pod because I know he's got a lot to say, is Mauricio Pochettino officially finally taking over as the U.S. men's national team manager. But
looking like a hostage victim.
Holy shit. I'm gonna punt this if you guys don't mind, because I want Scott to my main thing is I want Scott to convince me that this is going to change things with the U.S. men's national team. I'm not convinced, but we'll punt that conversation for another day. He won't hear this because I know he will not listen. Shout out to Scott, road tripping right now. But let's talk about Spurs Women because we had a transfer deadline come and go. We had some action in terms of Spurs Women. They have made 2 signings since we last potted. One of them was on deadline day. Let's talk about the first one.
Woo!
Let's talk about the first one first. Spurs actually signed an American on loan from West Ham. It is goalkeeper Caitlin Talbert. 25-year-old has joined on loan through the end of December. I know that this gives Spurs kind of just more options in the goalkeeper spot, Caroline. That gives them a 3rd senior goalkeeper, which was needed. What do we know about Caitlin Talbert?
We know that she is an intense personality on the pitch. Her idol is Hope Solo. So I think if you're familiar with Hope Solo's game, that will tell you literally everything you need to know about the way she keeps. So I think she could easily become like kind of a cult, hero if she actually gets game time. That's the part I'm not clear on, is how much game time she's actually going to get in this, half season loan. Because we still got Eleanor Heaps in the mix, who has yet to make her senior debut for Spurs. So yeah, the goalkeeper situation is still very much like feeling transitional and kind of hoping that Becky can stay fit the whole season. Because I don't think we have like a long-term, replacement for her yet. So
the other signing, I'm gonna completely lean on you for a pronunciation of this player. Never mind. Based on your facial expression, maybe I can't completely lean on you.
I've heard a pronunciation which I think was Maite Arose.
That looks right. That's actually very close to what I would have said.
Okay, so let's go with that.
Say it again, Cass.
Maite Arose.
Arose.
Yeah.
But this signing seems a little bit more significant. It seems almost like this is the solution to Grace Clinton's departure, if you ask me. 26-year-old.
100%.
Yeah, 26-year-old who joins from a little club called Real Madrid, who has a lot of experience in the Champions League, is going to take over the number 10 shirt and has signed a deal through 2028. Has made the 2nd most appearances in Real Madrid history, which is like, wow, okay. Like, what do we have to say about this signing?
Well, that right there tells you that the club really wanted this player if they were able to go out and get basically one of Madrid's most important players. And she's on a 4-year contract. So, here is a long-term solution, I think, at the number 10. And I think in terms of immediate impact is probably going to be more impactful than even Grace Clinton was, because she was still, to be fair, a young player who was developing and didn't have sort of that game in, game out consistency. But yeah, the one thing about her though, is that she is quite diminutive. She is 5'1". So we're definitely going to be, relying on her technical skills to keep her in the game. Cause we know, the WSL is going to be a more physical league than what she's been used to. So that's something to look out for. But honestly, I think she's really going to be an exciting player to watch.
I'm pumped about this signing because honestly, the Grace Clinton news from the summer was, I think, maybe the 2nd most heartbreaking next to the Bizet news.
Celine.
Yeah, the Celine news was, but the Grace Clinton one was the one we were all like hopeful for at the start of the summer. And when that kind of went away, it was like, okay, what are we going to do here? Because of the impact that Grace Clinton made on loan last season and being named Young Player of the Season and all of those things. On the whole, as the window closed last Friday, this deal got done. On the whole, this window, I think, can we look at it in a super positive light? I feel like there maybe wasn't quite as much business done for Spurs Women as we might have liked there to be, but it still feels like a lot of like for like replacements were made and progress could perhaps still be. I'm treading kind of somewhat skeptically because this wasn't like a big splashy window, but there was at least some decent ancillary business done.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this, and I think in terms of like the outgoings, that was pretty positive because a lot of those outgoings were players who weren't playing anyway. You know, they were already out on loan, they weren't part of the picture. And even sending a player like Roz, who has been kind of an institution with the team, like I feel like that's a pretty clear indicator that we're getting serious about, you know, improving the squad and being able to compete with those top sides. And I think that, to be fair, signings like Razo and Oroz, they do that. You know, they make us better able to compete. But I think we still have a major issue with the goalkeeper contingent. You know, like that's going to be a real problem coming up in a few months if we have some injuries. So, but I think defensively we got a lot stronger as well with Claire Hunt coming in. Like she's going to be a really good addition. And then we've got obviously the Hungarian player Chicky is going to be kind of a wild card to me. Like I don't know what to expect from her, but I think more positive for sure than negative.
And now just a week to go before the season, Spurs did defeat Feyenoord in a 2-0 friendly behind closed doors. There's supposed to be another behind closed door friendly today against Manchester United, although as of the time of this recording,
I forgot that was today.
Yeah, we do not have any information about how that has gone. If that has gone, we don't have a time on it. These things are very secretive until they happen for some damn reason. But Spurs open up the WSL season a week from today, next Sunday, at Brisbane Road against the newly promoted Crystal Palace. So we're a week away from it now. All of a sudden, the window is done, and all of a sudden, the women's season, the WSL season, is upon us. I would think against a newly promoted side, against Crystal Palace, Spurs should be and will be, pretty heavily favored. But the outlook for them going into this season, I think, pretty strong and kind of maybe not quite breaking through to expectation level of being in a Champions League place, but maybe, I guess. I mean, kind of what we're talking about. Like the window is, we're somewhat speculative about the business that got done, but also who knows, right?
Yeah, I think for me, the big question is going to be, did we overperform last season? I think in my sort of slightly negative view that I got into during the whole Celine business, that was kind of how I was starting to feel like, yikes, are we going to be able to meet, reach that same level? But I will say with the deadline day signing of a Rose, I think we should be able to at least meet the level that we were at last season. The question is going to be, can we make that leap? Like that's been the constant question. And I think, frankly, it's probably going to still take some more investment in the squad to really be challenging for the Champions League qualification spots, because the teams at the top are still just so stacked.
Yeah,
like they're not getting any worse. Unless you want to talk about maybe coaching with Emma Hayes leaving. I don't know.
Right.
We'll see.
Yeah, that's kind of the only amongst the top tier teams in the WSL. That's the only massive change, I suppose, in terms of a seismic change. But we shall see. A reminder to folks that games will stream on YouTube this season in the WSL season. So if you're going to the FA Player for next week's game, you will not see it there. It will be on YouTube, which I think is a very welcome change. I'm totally on board for just logging on to YouTube and not having to go through the rigmarole of logging into the FA Player and having it kick me out all the time. That was always a massive, massive pain in my ass. So
the FA Player is a trash bag.
Well, and I'm hoping that there's going to be some better like shoulder programming along with this change, because
that's the hope.
It was always so deflating to watch on the FA Player and get like no halftime show,
no build up, no nothing.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah, that's kind of, I think, the hope with this new operation. You can't completely throw the FA Player away because the cup games will still be on the FA Player going forward. But for the league games, go to YouTube. You will find them on the Women's Super League page there. I think that's going to do it for this episode of the Tottenham Depot. I think we managed to get this in just about an hour. Of course, disappointment at the top, but we trudge on. The Spurs always do go marching on, as we say. There's kind of no other way to do it. So that's what it is. Be sure to check out our episodes on our YouTube page, youtube.com/Tottenham Depot. Leave us a rating and review on your podcast app of choice. If you are an audio only listener, it helps to spread the word about the show, get the word out to your Spurs loving fans. Follow us on social media at Tottenham Depot as well. We are on Twitter/X, Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, all those different places where we pump out the content for you. And be sure to reach out to us with your thoughts on what's going on at Spurs. You can follow Caroline at CG Stefko, follow Todd at TC_Kasho. You can follow me at Astedka, and again, follow us at Tottenham Depot for all the latest. For Caroline, for Todd, I've been your host, Andrew. As always, come on, you Spurs.